how to care for yourself through your passion. So tonight we have 5 great panelists, myself, MoLove, Rhonisha, Chris Goeins and her daughter, and then Lisa. And in that order, you guys can just go ahead and introduce yourselves and what you're doing. Before we get started, do know that this session is recorded, so do mute yourselves if you do not want to be recorded or on screen. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and drop them in the chat. So, Rhonisha, you want to get started?
Well, I thought you were going to talk about yourself.
I know, right? In that order, right? Okay, so I'm MoLove. I'm an artist, creator, designer, entrepreneur. I do self-help, wellness, and art therapy with people all the time. I'm not that really great at talking about myself until I start talking about myself, right? But we all do that. So I just want to make sure that people are okay and well and through whatever. So I support through my art and what I do. I'll get back to me. Go ahead, Rhonisha.
Okay, awesome. So my name's Rhonisha Franklin, and I am a DC-based portrait photographer, and I specialize in contemporary portraiture. Currently working on a project that it has been in the works since about 2018. It's called Profile Noir. It's now in the phase of becoming a coffee table book. So it has gone through, it's currently on exhibit at the Charles Sumner School Museum and Archives. And then there's an online gallery that is available through my website, and then the coffee table book as well. But I am based here in Washington, D.C.
All right.
Am I next?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I am. Hi, I'm Chris Goeins. I am an educator, an artist, and a writer. I happen to be a single mom of 2 creatives, one beside me. She'll introduce herself in a little while. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I like Mo. I'm not really good at talking about myself. I guess more of that will come out later. This is my daughter.
I'm Adjoa. I'm a senior at Stewart High School. I'm a dance major. I study ballet, modern jazz, world dance, and yeah, that's it. Oh, I plan on studying choreography in college as well.
That's us.
Thank you. Lisa. Lisa.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lisa Ochieng, and I am an educator as well, and an artist and an entrepreneur. I have an art program that runs in DC for 6 weeks every summer. This is our 6th year. I love to help I love to help people create and find their passion. That's it. I don't like talking about myself either.
Right. Again, we are all artists, so talking about ourselves is not our main focus. We help people in other ways and things that we do. So first, we're going to talk about our personal journeys and how we got to using art as a healing mechanism. I, for instance, art was a natural born talent. Both my parents were artists. I did not know to hone in on that. I just was doing it because it became an outlet or something where I wanted to be expressive to it. And from that, so I started writing on everything. I wrote on paper when I ran out of paper. I wrote on clothes, and when I ran out of clothes to write on, I started writing on my wall. And when I got in trouble for writing on my wall, I wrote on other people's walls. So it became a thing for me. And then people were like, well, you need to do something. Rhonisha is actually one of the people that helped inspire me get to some of the leaps and bounds that I got to, such as creating a coloring book for women to talk about themselves and how to express themselves through hair. That's a really, really big thing for us and something that we all kind of venture through. My personal journey through healing is after 45 suicide attempts, I one day realized that I was supposed to be here for some particular reason. So I started helping everywhere and anywhere I could. And I realized that that was my love language, was helping people and supporting people. Eventually it became coming into art, where helping people through my art helped other people create their art, and so on and so forth. And it became a very large ripple effect and a big thing now. Even for the month of May, I do three a day for the month of May, where I release 3 pieces of artwork, which I've gotten astounding reviews behind. And telling people how people telling me how it supports them. So that's a quickened version of where I went to use my art to be supportive. But Rhonisha, tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so photography was a tool that actually helped me heal. It helped me to get to a place where I could creatively express, because I was, working in risk management for high net worth individuals, and I didn't have, I was just repeating the same day over and over and over again, and there was no color in my life. The walls in my condo were all brown, and it was so mundane. And then I just went through this phase of I'm going to try anything and everything to figure out how I can get what's inside of me out, because I always describe myself as an artist trapped in a business body. And growing up, my mom would always have arts and crafts projects for us to do. She was the troop leader of 5 Girl Scout troops, so we were always working through something. So once I found photography, it, something in it clicked. And then when I discovered portraiture, and I took an image or created an image, turned my camera and looked at it, at the back of the camera, and I was overcome with emotion, that's when I knew that this was bigger than just taking a picture. You're not just taking something that is going to be forgotten in a couple days. This is a moment. This is the essence of this person that speaks not only to that individual, but also to the person that is creating it, and also the other people that are looking at the images. And so I got to a point where I realized that the entire ritual around my process was also a healing mechanism for the women that came into my studio. So whenever I have someone come in and sit for me, I try to create a space that is as peaceful, as just calm as possible, from the ritual that I go through before someone enters into my space, to the rituals that we do while people are getting their makeup done. And by ritual, I mean, the same thing over and over again. If you're going to come to my studio, I'm always going to have a cleansing that has been done prior to. So when you walk in, there's just this essence of peace. There's always going to be a moment of engagement between the makeup artist and myself as you're getting your makeup done. There's always going to be, a transference of trust energy that we're going to share as I'm creating these images with you. And so as I started to realize and see my process as a healing ritual, it kind of became a different level for me. It became more so of, this is my healing tool that I'm using, as opposed to this is, my job or my career or whatever. So that's how I use photography, as healing.
Hi, I'm going to start by saying I'm more educator than I am artist. I think a lot of people would probably disagree, but I'm saying that.
I was about to say, I've worked with you on an art project. You are more creative than I could even imagine. So
Okay,
take that back.
Okay, I'm not. I'm saying that because I think I came into understanding my creativity and using it for healing myself and others as an educator. I can't say that I grew up in an environment where people recognized it and appreciated it. In fact, I was often called weird for the things that I created. But as an educator, I connect with other artists as I did with Mo, or people who appreciate it. And I found that people's confidence in my art and wanting to, call on me to do anything. Like my kids literally do think I'm magic when they need something or need a project. So I think my healing, I use it for my healing, honestly, in the way that I can connect and relate to other people. Both of us are introverts. I think it's pretty safe to say a lot of artists are. But unique also to us is that we're also empaths. So we have a really interesting dynamic between the two of us. And as a mom of a creative who, it's not just dance with her, like there are other outlets, but that's what she prefers. It's just been a very interesting journey to allow her space, to express herself and honestly to relearn how to parent all over again, all those norms that we grew up with, especially as moms of color. Those are kind of out the window. But yeah, I would gonna let my daughter speak now. It's your turn. How does it help you, like in your choreography? Oh, okay, we're gonna come back to her. We'll come back.
My turn? Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Lisa Ochieng, and I am an educator. I've always done art. My introduction to art was simply drawing on everything, and then I fancy myself to be dramatic, and so I started drawing like these very dramatic cartoons in like the fifth and sixth grade, and just storyline and fashion and things like that. And I never envisioned myself being an art teacher or an art educator, an artist making money from it, because that just was not in the cards as far as my father thought. He wanted me to be a doctor. So it wasn't until I got to college and I took an art class and I was like, ooh, I think I like this. And so I changed my major to graphic design and then later to just fine arts with a concentration in painting, which is what I have my degree in. And I have to say, like, I've been blessed with different positions where I've been able to teach art, and my introduction to teaching art to children was on a daily basis in 2008, where I worked at the Perry School in DC on New York Avenue, and watching the kids come alive when they finally got a picture done that they really liked and getting them comfortable in the space of creativity. I feel like sometimes kids, everything is so ready-made, like everything is like right now, right now, right now. And so when things don't happen for them, they get so discouraged so quickly. And to be able to help them be comfortable and still enough to find that passion individually, which is what's been so amazing, is that I will be teaching and each kid comes up with this different, their different concepts, their different designs, and watching them be proud of themselves, it's just been amazing. And I went on to be a para at DCPS, and I was still working for a nonprofit, the fishing school, as an art instructor. And then I got asked to be the art teacher at the school that I currently am at. And that has been an amazing journey because it was not easy. You know, I always say teaching kids who have to take art, completely different than teaching kids who love art. And helping my students find their love for art. And what I teach my kids is that the art umbrella is so vast, so wide, and that my job is just to help them get and have an appreciation for it. And that I'm not here to make artists out of you. I'm here to help you appreciate it. And you can find your passion, whether it's writing, whether it's dancing, whether it's, you know, rapping. And I also kind of give them the space to share their what their creativity passions are. So if they have a poem they want to share, if they have a rap or a painting, you know, they want to share it with their friends and with the, you know, with the class, I let them do that so that when they come into my space, it's comfortable for them. I think that's my goal, is to help my students find that comfort. And I told them, I said, everybody has a passion. You know, everybody has it. You just have to be still enough to hear what it is and let it speak to you. And I have to say, I've been so blessed with the stuff that the kids have come up with. Even sharing their, I had 2 students who wrote a rap, and I have the video. I was almost moved to tears because I was like, they found their own music. It was so original to the point where they were asked by the music teacher to do an original piece for our Black History program. So I was like, you know, that was a proud moment for me. And so for me with kids, it's just been helping them find that. In school, it's been helping them find that comfort. And I started an art program 6 years ago, like I said earlier. And it's different because, like I said, teaching kids who love art, you have to be ready because they're ready to hear what's next and what's next and what's next. And so introducing them to different techniques and tools and watching them flourish has been amazing. So yeah, I think for me, that's just been my journey for the past 10 years, just with children. It has also fed my soul as far as my own art. I have to say, I hit a rough patch. As most artists do. And I hadn't painted anything in 2 years. But the crazy thing is that if I felt it, and I think as artists, when you're not creating, it's like, you know, you feel it in everything that you're doing. You feel frustrated, you start questioning yourself. And so I actually painted something a few weeks ago for a friend for her birthday. And it came out, I was happy. Let me say, I was just happy because it had been 2 years since I painted. But I think for me, I don't know until when, but for right now, it's just helping kids find what they're passionate about.
I get it. Yeah, it does make a difference when you are being creative in the moments that you're not. We want to go back to Nde. Is she ready to talk about her journey through it all?
I'm sorry?
Okay.
Oh.
Me? Yeah, Adjoa. Okay.
Adjoa.
Okay, so for me, dance is like an escape. Like, it's a safe place for me to express myself creatively. Especially with choreographing, because it's like I can express things I've always wanted to say but couldn't verbalize. And yeah.
Okay.
And that's really good to hear from the youth who say that, because creativity is a lot of place where we get stuck. And as children, we don't always have that outlet. As adults, we can say, we can try this maintenance set, we can meet these people, we can go do these things. We have all these other options, but as a kid, we don't have these options. And so I found that a lot of times, you know, I hung out with a lot of creatives in high school and growing up, and they're the kind of things that pushed me to want to do more and want to see more. But like Lisa said, you know, parents don't always see what you want for your future. And then when you start to find those things, you tend to open up, kind of like Rhonisha kind of found her way with photography. So we all kind of feel that change and that shift in ourselves when we add art to our lives. So healing is a big portion of what we look for every day. We go on these self journeys, we go on these paths, and we don't ever not cross an artistic path in our healing journey, right? Whether it's writing, journaling. I mean, they tell us to do it in therapy. But what are those monumental moments, kind of like what Lisa spoke about, where it actually changed and shifted you when you started doing something creative? And anybody can answer who wants to answer that.
This is a good time for me to jump in. I'm going to piggyback off of what Adjoa said and then what you just added. And that sometimes as parents, we don't really see what our kids want. We kind of go by what we want for them. And this is really, in particular with our journey. I played basketball in high school and college. Her brother played overseas, and she has a very athletic build. So, we put her in basketball. And for 3 years, she did it for us. And then her last year of middle school, she just came and said, "Mom, I hate basketball. And I just want to dance." I was like, "What? Dance? Like, I don't dance. Your dad doesn't dance. Where is this coming from?" So we found a class at a community center. But I didn't let her quit the season. That's one thing. We finish what we start. So she finished the season, and for 6 weeks, we would go from basketball practice, have dinner in the car, straight to ballet. Like in her basketball clothes, she's taking these ballet lessons. And that's at the moment that I learned that I have to step back as this traditional role as mom and really listen to her, because if I had paid attention, I would have seen that she didn't really like basketball. And I was really proud of her for finding her voice and for using it. And to the point where she would, Mo, you were saying that they can use this to express themselves in ways that we don't know. So her dad and I divorced when she was 10. And she has a great relationship with him. But for years, I always felt like I didn't know where she stood, how she felt about the divorce and how it all happened. This year, she choreographed, her first piece that she ever choreographed was selected for performance. And afterwards, I interpret it as a friendship or a relationship between two girls. And but afterwards, she came to me and told me, "That is about you and Dad and the relationship." So it was 6 years later, and she was able to beautifully express to me exactly how she saw our roles. And it was just a tremendous burden lifted off of me, because in that moment, I realized she didn't fault me. She understood the process, nor did she fault her father. It was so beautifully presented in that she understood the turmoil or the pain between both of the parents, but we still haven't talked about it. And I think that's the beauty of it. Even afterwards, she was just like, "Nah, you saw the performance, you get it." And so I think it's really important for us to not only recognize their gift and their processes, but to honor it. And sometimes that's not necessarily easy, especially when we've been brought up in such traditional roles.
Thanks. That's really important to see how the arts kind of talk the talk that we can't necessarily say. And actually that goes into Rhonisha doing the segment that you do now. You photograph a lot of mothers and daughters and families, and they tell a story through these. They're super, super passionate and in depth. And if you go to the museum to see the different ways that they're displayed in their pose, it kind of talks their story through. You actually had them do 3 words each to go with their pictures. So can you talk a little more about that and what that series held for you?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I could talk about Profile Noir forever.
Right.
But I'll condense it down into just a few minutes. So Profile Noir stemmed from another personal project. And I was encouraged by some photographer friends of mine to take actually this image and create a project around it. They were so blown away by it when I posted it, you know, put it out there into social media, into the world. And they were just like, you need to do this. You need to make it a thing. And so for them, because they're highly regarded in the photography industry, for them to come to me and say that, I was humbled by that. Like, I was like, what? This? Really? You know, you think it's going to be a thing? And so it didn't start out, I'm giving the backstory because it didn't start out with the intention of it, you know, being such a healing mechanism and tool for everyone that has, you know, either participated or seen the project. And so I sat with that encouragement a little bit, and I was like, okay, so this is what I want to do. I definitely want to do 100 women. Like, it just came to me, 100 women of color. And as I was actually doing the first, I would say 5 sessions, that's when it really kind of it unfolded how it wanted to be. You know, sometimes you have an idea of what you want to do, and your piece or the work that you're doing doesn't actually come to its full, you know, glory until you keep working with it, until you allow it to just kind of do what it does, right? And so it ended up, you know, after those 5, I started to see a trend with what my eye was going towards. And so there were 3 poses that my eye was really drawn to. It was first the profile, of course. I always shot the profile because that's what this is based off of, this profile right here. So it was the profile, a straight on look where you're looking directly at the camera. And then what I call your seat of power. So it's kind of like you're looking off into the distance. You're looking over your land, your kingdom, your life, whatever it is that gives you a very strong regal feeling in you, right? And so then from there, I asked each participant to give me 3 words, and the 3 words had to answer a question. What's one word that describes how you see yourself? What is one word that describes how other people see you? And then what is your power word? And so then I was able to attach the words to each one of the images that I felt embodied the essence of that word. So we didn't go into the shoot thinking, oh, this pose is going to go with this word, this pose is going to go with that word. It was all within my post process that I was then able to kind of sit with each image, sit with the words that they chose, and tie them together. And so then once I titled each of the images, I went back for the gallery, the online gallery, and the book, and asked each participant to share what their experience was. And then that's when I really started to get like that insight, right? So women would respond to me and say, oh my gosh, this is so great. I can't believe, this is me. And going through the process was XYZ. Like, I would get those notes, like DMs, after I dropped the image, because I would just drop the image. Like, they didn't know when it was coming, when I was posting it or whatever. So I got a lot of women that were crying, calling me like, oh my God, I've never seen myself like this. And so I decided to capture that story as well. And so I think that's what you were kind of talking about initially, like what was the backstory to a lot of the women and why they chose to be a part of the project, because they chose me. I didn't go out and handpick people that were going to come. I put out, this is what I'm working on, and people that wanted to come and be a part of it were able to do that. And so many women, it ranged from so many different types of women that hate being photographed, women that never got their makeup done, women that only wore their hair a certain way, women that never wore their hair in their natural state and only wore it, blown out, and then they would have to wear it natural for the shoot or something like that. Some insecurity. Every person had an insecurity that, came and sat for me, that we were able to kind of like push to the side, or see the thing that causes the insecurity and sit with that, and then recognize how it makes you feel, recognize the power that you have, you know, to see it as a perfect imperfection, this whole process with each woman. And it was just, you know, it will forever be, you know, in my heart, this project. So I don't know if that answered your question. So
that was a deep, profound answer. I mean, it definitely resonated with how helpful it is for people who are not artists and who are not creatives to find or see themselves in a creative way. I often get requests for certain things from people that say, this is exactly what I'm thinking, make it happen. And I have to show them what's in their brain out on paper or out on an image or out in something that I've created for them. And they're like, yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's sometimes hard when you're the creative taking on somebody else's energy and trying to make it great, which is something that Lisa does a lot. Lisa, your kids just won a award contest, art contest throughout the district because you put something in their heads and they produce something awesome. So talk a little bit more about how you push the kids to get there. And
yeah, let me say, I was so proud of my kids. I have an art club at my school, and I had to take some time away from school to go take care of my dad in Brooklyn, New York. And when I came back and I checked my email, I was like, oh crap, like I have this cherry blossom contest to enter that I said I was going to enter. And so I had like 2 days. And so what I said was, I'm just going to throw it out to the art club and see who bites and, you know, see if they really want to. I wasn't going to push them and make them feel like they had to. And so I asked who wanted to. 5 kids said yes. 2 kids showed up in my classroom. So because I explained to them, you know, I said, okay, so you're going to have to eat lunch in my class and you're going to have to miss recess. Now, these are second graders. And a 5th grader, I think Zen's in the 5th grade, 4th or 5th grade. And so, you know, telling a kid that you're gonna miss recess, I'm like, I really didn't expect the second graders to show up, honestly. But these 2 girls showed up and they literally painted the entire day. They were committed because I felt bad. I was like, do you guys want to stop? It's okay if you want to stop. I know it's a lot. And they're like, no. And I was like, okay. And so the day before we talked about what the theme was, which is, it had to represent cherry blossoms and friendship. And then I told them to draw a sketch of what they wanted to put on their canvas. And I brought in the canvases the next day and they painted. So from lunchtime until 3:15 was when the bell rang. Literally, they were done by 3:15. And I think what made me feel so, like, I didn't care if they won or not. At that point, I was like, I'm treating y'all as something because this was commitment. These second graders are 7 or 8. You know, for them to sit and want to paint this thing to see it to the end was, to me, was winning enough. And so we talked about, you know, what they wanted to add and colors. And I brought in my own stuff, like my own paints and stuff, because I had better colors than what I have at school. And I brought in like little embellishments just to kind of make it fun. And when I say I was so proud of them. And we literally got the email, I think the day that I dropped off the pictures to the site, that they were shutting down all field trips because the kids were looking forward to seeing their work on a wall, you know, amongst their other, you know, because I told them, I said, this is all of DCPS. You know, your painting is going to be with other students from other schools. And I said, you know, I will, you know, talk to the principal and talk to your parents and maybe we'll get to go see it together. And literally that afternoon that I dropped it off, they're like, want, no field trips. But the kids were happy that they finished it. And Tiana won first place for her division. And then I got an email 2 weeks ago that she won the People's Choice Award. And I mean, I was so proud. And for me, the other little girl, Alicia, I sent her just a package of goodies, like art goodies, because of her commitment. I told her mom, I said, I don't want her to feel like I didn't appreciate her at all. So I just sent her like a bunch of stuff, like art stuff, because I think I was just blown away at their commitment and the fact that they didn't want to give up and they wanted to see it finished. As they're creatives on their own, but second grade, I'm just thinking you're so young. Like I know for a fact at 8, 9, I probably wouldn't have finished. I would have wanted to go outside. I would have wanted to go back to my friends, but they wanted to stay. And I was
I mean, that's really important to just kind of let them be free and not push them. Sometimes when you are creative, people expect so much of you because you have that talent and ability where sometimes you don't always have it. And then when you kind of make it more fun or make it more enjoyable, you then see your ability to do more. So Chris, why don't you piggyback off of that about, I mean, she's a teacher, but it's the same thing as parenting, right? So it's like, you don't want to push your kid too hard. You don't want to give them too much, but you want to also be there and support them in all ways. So talk about that with her dance.
Yeah. So when it comes to her dance in particular, I definitely have to be hands off. But what I have learned is to pay attention to and understand the ebb and flow of her creativity and her rhythms. I've had to really step back. I think I mentioned earlier, I have 2 daughters. My oldest daughter is also creative. She's a photographer, but with my oldest daughter, when it comes to her creativity, I really have to pull it out of her or she won't do anything with it. When it comes to Adjoa, she's in complete charge of it. Like, I honestly just have to just kind of be there, just the guide on the side. And I don't necessarily push her. There are times, because, Adjoa manages very well, and especially now during this pandemic, she manages both anxiety and depression. If you know anything, downtime is the worst, for both of those. But she uses her art, to manage that and to, like she said, to express herself. So, I think I'm going to go back to, again, you have to understand your child or your student and understand what it is they need. And I know with Adjoa, she does not need to be pushed. If I push her, I'm not going to get what I want from her.
So Adjoa, can you talk about how you create your choreography and how do you manage your anxiety in the midst of all of that?
Yes. So usually I take from childhood, like what I'm going to choreograph. So, sorry, can you repeat it? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, just how do you go about the process of your choreographing, and then how do you manage your anxiety with dealing with creating a piece? Like, what is your balance? So she says you deal with your stressors and that. So how do you deal with that from your perspective?
Okay, so choreographing in general can be really stressful, especially since I always have like a time limit. So I always improv first to make sure I know what movements I want to use. And I had to have a theme with it as well. So to help me with my anxieties, I usually, like I said, improv to like release any stress I have, and I record myself while doing it. So that helps me choreograph. Yeah.
How do you balance your anxiety with that?
Mm-hmm. Does it give you any anxiety in the process?
Yeah.
How do you release that?
You haven't figured that part out yet?
No.
That's okay. Look, I can't figure out my anxiety either. I'm working through it all, right? So let me ask Rhonisha. Rhonisha, do you have anxiety when it comes to making people look a certain way?
No.
Oh,
I don't have anxiety because I'm not trying to make them look like what they're not. What I'm trying to do is release who they are, because they come in and they have that mask on of how they want to present, how they, envision the whole process to go. So that's where I have to come in and be that safe space for them to remove the mask, to turn over their trust to me, to be free, because when you're photographing someone, it's a very intimate process, like especially portraiture, because I don't really do like a lot of like the proppy type of things. I create images that you're not going to always see of yourself, and so they have to be willing to let me be the artist at that point, and show them what I see in them. And so I think what has helped me if I did have anxiety in the beginning, and that would just be because I was still trying to learn the craft. So, when I first started the process, yeah, there probably was more anxiety, but now that I have gotten to a space and a level of, confidence in what I'm doing, I think there's less anxiety around that, and a little bit more so of an empowering kind of, feeling that I have, because I'm literally going to be able to show another person the beauty that I see in them that they may not have seen before. So to get there, my process, maybe this is what you're looking for, to get there really was a process of my own self-discovery, seeing recognizing the mask that I, have put on, and going through the process of removing it, on a daily basis, going through that process of like, okay, Rhonisha, how are you presenting? Is this really what you want to do? Are you doing it because this makes you feel good, or are you doing this because you feel an obligation, or you feel like this is what somebody else wants you to do? So it's just that my own personal healing process over the years that have helped me to be able to be in a position where I can then condense that down into like a 2-hour session with somebody else, because I can recognize it. I wouldn't call myself an empath, but I can feel how someone is feeling. I don't take on their feelings, which I think is the difference between, feeling energy and being an empath. I'm not actually taking on those feelings, but I can definitely feel when somebody is like holding back or wanting to do something and they're not really sure if they want to do that, or if they're having a bad day, or if they're, whatever it is, I can feel it. And so that skill I'm able to then bring into the studio and help maneuver the energy. Just like I bend light, I also am bending and maneuvering and working with different energy.
that's important. That's needed to to bend people out of, kind of stiff positions. I know as an artist or a visual artist, to see people or to say I've created you in this particular way, or they're like, that's me. It's not always seen exact way, or it's, wow, I didn't see myself that way. Same as your photographer. So it's sometimes difficult to interpret either how people see themselves or how they receive themselves, but then it's kind of part of their self journey to say, I now see myself in other people's perspective. I personally took myself and modified myself in a certain way that I wanted people to see me. And if anybody knew me prior to, I'm like, yeah, that's not who I am now, because I'm about to be somebody else. You just haven't seen it yet. So check me as I will be, not as I currently am. And so that's an important piece in my in my understanding of myself, is that you will see me the way I want you to see me, as opposed to the way you want to personify me. And that gets a little tricky sometimes, and it gets crazy as a creative or an artist to trying to hone in on what other people are seeing, when you're seeing lights and colors and things, and this is a something and this is going to be something each and every time you're doing it. So across the diaspora of all the different things that we're doing, it all kind of falls into trying to understand, because it's like being left-handed, you know, like we don't do it the same way everybody, but we're gonna get to the same point as everybody, right? So it's hard for people to always see it how we see it, you know, or for them to understand what we see and like it too. So does anybody
When that happens, though, I think that's where, you know, you can really see the magic in what you created. When somebody does either see what you saw, or somebody sees something different, you know, and it still resonates with them in their own being. So I think it's just a matter of being brave enough to put it out there, so that you can, one, get it out, because somebody's waiting for you, waiting for that thing that you have to put out in order for it to impact their lives. They're waiting on you to do that, not anybody else, you. So once you do that, then you're able to release what you need to release as far as that energy goes, and then they're able to gain whatever healing and thing, you know, impact on their life that they have.
right? And those ripple effects are needed so that people can change and people can be different. So back to Lisa, you create ripples effects. You find creatives inside. I deal with a lot of children dealing with a lot of trauma, and finding artistic children, or children that can do, you know, something that we didn't think that they were capable of doing. I'm learning now with this distant learning that my kids are way more creative. I mean, I have a student that's never walked into my classroom because of his behavior. And now that he's sitting in front of his mother, like, I'm getting these amazing pictures from him. And I'm like, wait, you know how to do this? I didn't think you knew how to hold a pen at this point. So what are some of the things that you feel that have come out of what you've shown them? So if I show them that I can do, for instance, I've taken this coloring book. I actually created this coloring book in my classroom. Like every day I would just draw. I'm like, oh, just had one of those classes, and then I would go draw a picture. So they started wanting to draw pictures like this and creating stuff like this. And so I found out that kids have these different talents, and they're not all, you know, able to draw something, but like you said, they can write a poem, or they can do a rap, or they can do something else. So how do you find yourself creating that ripple effect of a larger thing inside of other people? Because a lot of times we grow based off of what we're putting out there. Like Rhonisha said, we put it out there, but to help us, to get rid of it, to get it off our backs and our shoulders. And then we've created something else with so many other people and didn't even know that we were doing these things.
That's true. For my kids, so what I've noticed with this distance learning is, let me say, I have posed art challenges, because even as when I had to wrap my mind around how my students would have an authentic art class from a computer screen. And it took me a little while to kind of figure that out myself. I was having a hard time trying to figure it out. And then I realized, because, you know, you're thinking, does everybody have art supplies? Does everybody have, you know? So I posed art challenges, and what I've seen, especially because I told the kids, whatever you have in the house, as long as your parents say you can use it, you can create this piece. And these kids have come out the woodworks with some stuff. Like I had a box challenge, and I told them, pardon? Oh,
I said I did one of those with creating.
Did.
It was,
yeah.
The parents got involved. It was a thing. So.
And I told my kids, I said it can be any size. You can cut it up, you can tape it up, you can glue it up, you can draw on it. I said, there are no rules, and you don't have to have fancy supplies to create something. And one that stood out, one of my students created COVID with the spores and everything from a box. And, you know, you would think, you know, they do something like, I guess what you call mainstream. I had a kindergartner create a bank, not just any bank. You had to, like, he had directions to this bank, and there was the hole, and you had to put money in order for you to put this money, and then had a space for his lunch bag that you had to put money in order to be able to get the lunch bag. And so what I realized is when you give them these directions that are limitless, they don't feel confined. And so they're like, ooh, I can do this, I can do that. I mean, it was so great to see. There's a little boy who I haven't heard his voice until distance learning. And he was like, I created a bus with a box and some construction paper. And I was like, I haven't even heard your voice since we've been in school. But the fact that I feel like, number one, it's a time to, you know, to have some fun and to be creative. And number two, like I said, they don't feel confined. They don't feel left out. I try to make the projects inclusive so that, you know, they don't feel like I can't do it because I don't have. But I think with the rules having no rules really, has made them comfortable enough to be creative and realizing that I can do anything. Like, there is no wrong way to do this. There was a little girl, she drew a picture of a girl on a piece of cardboard. And I was like, that's beautiful. And so what I loved is that everybody came to the table with something different. Nobody came to the table with anything that was the same. And I feel like that's because they were comfortable enough to, you know, let their minds wander. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's really good. I mean, the fun part about this is that they don't have a bunch of rules. They don't have a 45-minute time limit.
Right.
They have unlimited time to be creative.
Yeah.
So Chris, what would you say to that when you see creativity happening? How would you hone in on that and grow it?
So I would share an experience that's different from visual arts. When I was teaching fifth grade, I had a student, and you know, your question about recognizing it, or your statement about recognizing it, it's important when you see that kid and they just can't help it, like they just have to do this thing, whatever it is. And I had a student who insisted on writing rhymes in his writing notebook, and he would literally turn them into me. It was not the assignment. It was nothing that I asked him to do, but he couldn't help himself. He just would constantly write rhymes in this composition book. And at the end of class, I would be like, Michael, this is not what I asked you to do. Like, what is it? And he was just like, but that's what I want to do. So I had to bargain with him. You know, I would chunk the assignment, you know, you do this part, and then I'm going to give you 3 minutes and a separate notebook. So I gave him a different book for his rhymes. And so we just had to go back and forth, and we got through that way. But I had to feed his passion. I understood, even though I was a fifth grade teacher, as an artist, I understand, you know, that passion. And when that hits you, you need to exercise it. You need to do that thing. And so we got through it. And now this young man, I think he must be in his early 20s by now. He's like this YouTube sensation. Like, literally, his lyrics make me blush and clutch my pearls. But I did have to inbox him and say, I'm so proud of you for following your passion. I saw this in you when you were 10. And now he's just, I mean, you know, my kids know who he is. And it's like, I think I'm going to just say this, pay attention, you know, when it's the thing that they can't help and they have to do it, then find a way to work around it. And, you know, we have to come out of this conventional way of doing things. It's not about the win. It's not about, you know, I'm the teacher, I said do it this way, and that's the way it's going to be. There is another side, you know, we educate the whole child. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Absolutely. So when she decided that she didn't want to play basketball and become an artist, how did you guys go through that process? Or
Well,
let her speak to when you were when you decided this is enough and this is what I'm going to do. Tell us how like you broke through those barriers and saying I'm going to take over my passion.
Okay, so I remember when she first like put me in basketball, I was like, I really don't want to do this, but I did it to make her happy. And then I decided that it was time to make myself happy after all these years of doing something else for somebody. So I just didn't really care if she like felt some type of way because it's what I wanted to do. And that's what I needed to like finally express myself because I couldn't do it verbally.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I told you I got in trouble for writing on walls, but when they took paper from me and they took clothes from me and then I had walls, they took walls from me. I found something else to write on. Like I could not stop. So it's good that you decided that you were going to take ownership of your own feelings. That's super duper important. Does anybody have any advice for the people who are still struggling with being creative, but still wanting to express themselves some way, somehow? You did it through dance and said, this is how I'm going to express myself. You did it through photography and said, this is how I'm going to help other people see themselves. You know, so we all find our ways to kind of tell people what we're thinking and what we're saying when we don't have the words to do it. So what is anybody's advice to people who don't necessarily, they're more book savvy or more something savvy, where they don't have the art in their forefront of their mind, but still need to get it out? On the market, set, go. No? Somebody.
Yeah, so I would first say that you should recognize that you are a creative just by being, you know, like just by being in existence, you are a creator, you are a creative. How you choose or what medium you choose in order to express that is the process or the journey that, you know, you go through in life, or you may just kind of innately know that, you know, a lot of people are gifted to the point where they're just, you know, or blessed to know this is what I love to do from day one, you know, because they either had parents that were nurturing, you know, their passions at a very young age, or they just were super talented and it was just always like the thing that they gravitated to by drawing on walls, other people's walls, so they just always knew. So I would say first recognize that you are creative, you know, kind of accept that and don't feel that it has to be a painter or a writer or a photographer or those creative fields. Then I would say do everything, like play with everything. So that's what I did. I painted, I journaled, I wrote poetry, I created, you know, different arts and crafts things. Whatever it was that was a creative outlet, that's what I did. And then I found photography, and then that's where, like I said earlier, my soul kind of just smiled with that. And so I started to nurture that craft, and that's how I've gotten to this point. And I'm not going to say that photography is the end all, you know, be all, because we always change, morph, and find other things that we're also very passionate about and move forward with. But that would be my initial advice: to play, and then first recognize that you are creative and to play.
And also, I think sometimes you feel like I might be too old, or it's too late for me to find the passion, or it's too old for me to figure out if I'm a creative. I don't think there's any limit to when you find out. You know, I think sometimes, like you said, like, you know, some people are more book savvy, and so they might have something in them that they don't even realize. And I feel like right now, where everybody's on pause, this is where you can, let me take out that notebook or my computer and see if that, you know, and write a story, or like you say, just play around with different things, the things that just kind of like you're attracted to, because everybody's not attracted to the same thing. And so I feel like everybody has an attraction to some type of creative outlet. And so if you're attracted to it, then, you know, run with it and see, you know, it may not be it might be something else. You know, you might want to play the piano, or you might, you know, some people are good at playing by ear, you know, draw a picture or, you know, take a picture. But I think that you shouldn't allow age to keep you from finding what your passion, what your creative outlet is.
I think it's important to pay attention to the fact that art is everywhere and it's all around us. And I'm thinking now, like, oddly enough, I have a lot of friends who are very much left-brained, and they would, you know, say, oh, you know, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, not even interested in it. But I mean, it's important to see that it's everywhere. Like a very left-brain friend is literally mesmerized by a well-manicured lawn, you know, when it has those perfectly lined up lines. Yeah, that's art. And you can do that. And then you do that in your yard. So, I mean, you have to just, I think it would be helpful to point that, you know, things like that out to people. Art has, you know, many different faces, and it really is everywhere. It sounds cliche, but, you know, it is everywhere. I think that's, pay attention, you know, slow down and pay attention.
Absolutely. I completely agree. To just kind of, I agree with Rhonisha and you, to pay attention, but also to like try everything. You know, my talent is unlimited, and it took people to tell me, like, you know, you can do this, right? And so now my motto is, if you can think it, I can make it. Like anything you come up with, because I honestly believe that anything I visually can see, I can do, because it was told to me, like, you know, you can do this, or, you know, you can make this, or it may not be the perfect or the best one or the greatest one, but I bet you didn't do this, you know, because you didn't try it. So a lot of times you have to just try things to see if you're good at, or to see if it makes you happy, and it releases those endorphins of enjoyment and satisfaction. Any questions? No comments? Okay. So, I mean, at this point, if there's no questions or comments, or any final statements, I'll close it out with a poem. How about that? Anybody want to hear a poem? Well, here you go. I'm gonna do it anyway. And since we talk about women so much, I'm writing children's books for self-help coping mechanisms, and they're also written in a poetic form. So this is off of an image of a child looking into a mirror, just talking to themselves. And it's called She Is My Superhero. She told me I needed a superhero, so I reminded her she already was one. I simply reflected the light that already shined within her. I gave her back the power she once held inside. I uplifted her from the beings that once broke her down. I reminded her that she was unlike any other, and told her she was capable of breaking down walls and building up young men. She was strong enough to overcome any hardships that tried to stop her from her greatness, powerful enough to bear the world on her shoulders, hips, and back, and just as magical enough to make little Black girls discover their own personal shine. I didn't do much more, but believe in her. Every minute she forgot to do it for herself, or even more, when others gave her self-doubt. I didn't stop when she started believing in herself, just in case. And I never did it any less than her, while inspiring others to do so as well. I created a support system that launched her into the sky when she couldn't get off her feet, designed communication mechanisms for her to continuously hear about her awesomeness, no matter how deep she's gone down. I formatted calculations of success, because validation wasn't enough for her to see her greatness. I helped work round the clock to create shields and forts to protect her from whatever this world was eventually coming her way. I couldn't stop making sure she was becoming the biggest, baddest superhero around, because I never knew if I was going to ever need saving, and I would need her to find me, save me, and be okay another day. So when she told me I needed a superhero to empower this heavy task, I already told her I've got one. That was a statement, not an ask. And so that goes back to saying that you have to tell yourself that you've got this and you have the power to do this. And often we forget how strong and how capable we as women are to do so many things in this world. So we have to remind ourselves. And when nobody else is there to be our cheerleading squad and tell us how great we are and give us all the likes on social media, we still have to do it for ourselves. So that's my final notion. Thank you guys for joining us and participating. LaQuanda, go ahead and handle it.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us for our first annual It's Your Turn to Heal, Sis virtual conference with Healing Black Women. I appreciate all the panelists. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies. You're truly an inspiration. Much love, light, and peace with you always. MoLove, thank you for a wonderful session. And to all the contributors and to everyone who's following us, be sure to check the chat box before you leave to see how you can connect with this amazing panel, our amazing panelists. It's been a joy. And, you know, we have this idea of really pouring into the hearts of women across all different spectrums, not just one. And we are truly blessed that all of you can just share the essence of who you are with those who really, really need it. So thank you so much. We're gonna close everything out. Everyone have a good night and rest well.